All right, welcome to War Media Bears recap. We are back. It's been a minute, right, Joe? I mean, how you been, man?
I've been pretty good, man. I've been trying to, keeping my ear to the ground and, reading and listening to see what the Bears may possibly do. It's been a few shakeups, since it's the draft process is going on and we're only a week away, and then so it's kind of like it's coming to this powder keg because it's about to explode and, fans across the city, can't wait. They're ready to see what, Ryan Poles does with
Hmm.
the draft capital that he was able to amass and from trading the first pick. And the people are looking forward to seeing some new Bears on the field.
No, yeah, man. I know, and it's just one of those things where the excitement's been there, and we talk about it, because we have a great guest today. But the guest, was there, at the beginning of the offseason, obviously at the end of the season, because obviously, we got the first pick, whatever. I think how they traded it, and now we're kind of still, we still think Brian Pold might do something, whether it be trading down or whether it just be, getting someone you don't expect, that might be, a low key pick there. But we have a great guest today. We're going to be joined by NBC's draft analyst Glynn Morgan. We have a great conversation with him, just talking about, the quarterbacks in there, who the Bears might get, where Jalen Carter might fall in there. But yeah, it's a great time. And it was there anything in particular that you liked from the conversation, or anything that you think, hey, did he change your mind about something? I mean, don't spoil it, but is there anything that, is there a pick that might, was thought was going to go one way, but now it's going a different way?
You know what? I really enjoyed listening to his insight about the moves that Ryan Poles has made so far in this
Yeah.
offseason. And he's a person who Glenn is a person who's been pretty in tune, with the Bears, going through this process and been following pretty closely with the things that they've been doing. So hearing his insight into the kind of person as a GM, I would say not the kind of person. I don't think he knows Ryan Poles personally, but getting insight to what he is as a football executive, and some of his thought processes was very insightful and and fun to listen to.
No, yeah, of course. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. Here's NBC draft analyst Glynn Morgan. All right, welcome to the interview portion of the Bears recap. We are joined by Glynn Morgan. He is the NBC Sports Chicago draft analyst. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Looking forward
Of
to this,
course,
man.
of course. The draft is a week away. The excitement, has been
Yeah.
building, of course, for Bears fans for months now, right? I mean, not just even before the trade and all that, but without the number one pick now, I think everyone kind of assumes or expects, the Brian Poles is cooking something, whether it be drafting down or whether it be, being a little tricky, maybe,
Sure.
kind of, thinking outside the box. But what
Right.
what what have you made of the Bears draft centric moves leading up to the draft itself? What did you think about the trade itself? Did they get enough, or do you think they should have stayed pat at number one? What did you think?
Yeah. No. Initially, because I'm greedy. I wanted more.
Yeah,
uh, I wanted them to make. I wanted them to make two moves. I wanted them to go down to number two, possibly, or four. I think four is a little more realistic for me earlier with the Colts,
hmm
and then from the Colts bump down to nine. So that's kind of where I had them eventually landing. So I was thrilled. Selfishly, I was thrilled when they went down to nine. I'm like, yes. At least I eventually got to where that. And so it made sense to me. Earlier, I thought maybe it might be a little bit too soon, but then like, you know what? You got to go when you can go because you never know what can happen. The acquisition that really made it more palpable to me was the fact they got DJ Moore. It's just like, oh man, okay, great. You got a legit veteran, and getting DJ Moore allowed everyone else, that by everyone else meaning the receiving room, to be able to be slotted in a spot in a space where they could be more advantageous with their
hmm
skills in terms of Claypool is not really number one. Maybe he'll be better as number two. Mooney's really good wherever you put him, but he's more dangerous in the slot. And now everybody kind of is in their lane, and it gave some structure to the
hmm
receiving room. But with that being said, all three guys are versatile and they can align anywhere. But as far as getting the additional picks and getting that first round pick for the following year was key as well, because now you have to imagine that the Panthers, they're probably going to start their rookie quarterback sooner than later. We just got their best receiver, so they're going to be down some weapons, and The running back is already gone. It's just like, so they're probably going to be a top 5 pick next year. So I thought his moves were not just prescient for today, but also looking forward into the following season. So I thought that was really good for what he got, because you never know what's going to happen. So many things can happen in terms of the draft picks you may be looking at, or other teams you're looking at. They might make mistakes, and so now their draft value goes down, or someone might get injured working out on a pro day. Anything can happen that can mix a deal. And Poles came out later on and said they had something brewing with the Texans, but it fell through. And you don't know if on draft day or the week before, if a lot of things fall through, other people make better offers, and now you're standing there with, and not that the number 1 pick's a bad place to be, but you want to get more, because right now the Bears in that situation where quantity is what we really need, as opposed to specific quality players. And that I think can be for next year.
No, yeah, what's funny? What? Go ahead, Joe. You go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I kind of have the same feeling that Glynn has. I was hoping that the Bears, I pictured them with this double barrel shotgun holding it to the league's head.
Right.
And just give me all the picks. But as this draft process has gone on, we were expecting, to have like this rush on quarterbacks and having a consensus number 1 quarterback. And that really didn't happen. And I think that kind of, and I think Poles, was kind of forecasting this. Like, these guys are not going to set the world on fire, and you're not going to have the bidding war that you're going to get for that number 1 pick. So I think moving when he did was pretty smart, and as you look at it now, I've been hearing rumors that the Texans might take Will Anderson at 2. So it's like, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's just those kinds of things that Ryan Poles is show some guile, I think, and moving when he did.
What's cool, and you said guile, and I think sometimes what I think is cool, and maybe I'm projecting because that's what we do, but I think that his apparent transparency is really his wolf in sheep's clothing. He's been very open about what he's doing, and everybody's like, okay, this guy, he's upstanding, he's nice, yeah, he's a good. And maybe people think can take advantage of him or just underestimate him a little bit, but I think he's hiding in plain sight, and I think they're looking at him as here's a person who lets us know what's going on, but he's really 2 steps ahead of you already. You just don't know it because he's so unassuming in a lot of ways. And he's making these moves, and it was an astute move. You're right. It's like he probably looked ahead and was like, you know what? Nobody's a clear-cut favorite here. Let me get what I can get now. So now I know what I'm doing. Bump everybody else. I know what I'm doing, or I know better where I want to go, as opposed to having to maybe at the last minute figure it out, and a whole bunch of other variables that you didn't account for change things. Now he's pretty much had time to figure out exactly what he wants to do, a contingency for his contingency, and then the contingency for that as well. And so I think having that time to figure all this out was something that was really a great move too in the long run.
Yeah, and what's funny that I was going to say about what you mentioned first about you wanted a little bit more. The other person who said they wanted a little more too on this podcast was Ken Davis. He actually mentioned that he was one of the few people. So I get where you're coming from for sure though. But no, yeah, when we're talking about Ryan Poles, I like his low keyness, right? Like he almost like he's got all the cards. He doesn't want to he's got a poker face, but I mean he's even getting compliments from like Brian Cashman, from others. Look at that from other sports, right? So but in general, the average fan I think has been bombarded, with names like Will Anderson, Jalen Carter for good reason.
Sure.
But who are the draft candidates that you're looking at that are kind of being overlooked by the general public?
A guy who fell through the cracks in a lot of ways, I think, because no one's really talking about him. And a lot of times that's because no one wants to talk about him because they're hoping he's there. Myles Murphy, man, going into this season, the 2022 season, that was a cat who was like a top 5, top 7 pick, easy. And it just seemed as though he became persona non grata in a lot of ways. Not like he did anything wrong or he didn't have a great season, but okay, it wasn't like he had a bad season. And here's a guy, an edge rusher who's versatile, a guy who's more of a 4-3 defensive end, but you can get away with him, in the elephant position, making the 3-4. But he's versatile enough. He's a guy who's been on the scene for a while. It's not like he just had 1 year of good statistics. And he's someone I think that's just kept falling and falling and falling. Now, granted, we know quarterbacks are going to push everybody else down, but he's falling behind other edge rushers, which I was like, well, okay, but he's still a really good player. Somebody's going to get a really good guy in the late teens, early 20s. I think he's going to fall somewhere between 18 and 25. But I really think he's still a top 10, top 15 talent, to be quite honest with you. So that's someone that I was surprised kind of fell down the rafters a little bit, so to speak. And no one's really talking about him. So as far as other players, Foskey, another edge rusher, Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame, another guy who's kind of fallen where he may be high second round, whereas early in the year people were thinking, because he had a really good season the year before, that he might be, top 15, top 20. So some of these guys, and I think it's because position wise, it's kind of heavy. And I think that's why some of these guys are falling back. So those are some of the guys that fell through the cracks to me.
With that being said, the Bears do have the number 9 pick. Is there a possibility that you can see them trading down, with all these guys falling through the cracks?
Can I see them trading down? I told you I was greedy, man. Of course, I want them to trade down. I'm begging them to trade down. But for that to happen, Cat's got to want to trade up. And that becomes the issue. And I think, man, dude, I think this is going to, this ninth spot we're at. And by we, I mean us, the Bears. I'm saying we. This ninth spot Chicago finds themselves in. It's a boon and a bane at the same time. And it's a boon because we can trade down. Or even if you maintain that pick, you can go a lot of ways. You can go offensive lineman, you can go interior defensive lineman, possibly. You can go edge rusher, certainly. You can even go cornerback. And we've been talking, we need another border cornerback, a corner so we can slide Gordon into the slot where he'd be more efficient. So you can pick whatever if you're Chicago with that spot. So that's where it can be a boon, or you can trade down, as you guys just mentioned. So that's the great part. Whereas the bane, it's like, I don't know what these other cats ahead of us are going to do. And the Bears might find themselves in a position where it's like, do I really want to be here? And then you were asking somebody, do you want to trade up? And they're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to give you anything, because what I want, I can wait for, because there's 2 or 3 cats in the same position that may be available for me. So teams may not want to trade up. So it's not precarious position, but it's becoming a slightly awkward position. And I'm going to throw something out at you to you guys. I was just tossing over in my head recently. So I haven't written it just yet, and I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I'm starting to believe, I don't think the Colts want to take a quarterback. And if they don't take a quarterback, that throws, you would think that could benefit the Bears, but could also kind of jam up some things. And why do I think the Colts are going to take a quarterback? The Colts, we've seen them tank before. They tanked to get Andrew Luck. And outside of him being injured, it worked for several years. I mean, they got to the AFC Championship game. They got several playoff games. He was the consensus number 1 pick. Now, if I ask you guys who's the consensus number 1 pick next year, you're probably, I'm going to assume, say Caleb Williams, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Well, hey, it worked before. What if they don't do well? Because they have about 3 quarterbacks on their roster already. They can play those guys and make it look like they're trying. Team's still relatively young. Maybe you get Tyree Wilson, and that messes up other people's thought. Like, I thought Tyree would be there. I thought the Colts were going to take a quarterback. And the Colts tank, and they're top 2, top 3 pick. If they're top 2, top 1 pick, Caleb Williams, you get Drake May. I'm just saying, if that happens, this draft is everyone's gonna go, what's going on here? And then because now it's like, well, all right, so does Anthony Richardson go to Seattle now? I don't think so. And then the Jalen Carter factor. Maybe Jalen, if Tyree's gone, Seattle's like, okay, we thought that they would take, we thought the Colts would take a quarterback and we would take Tyree. We wouldn't have to worry about Jalen. But now Tyree's gone. We really need some help on the defensive line. They take Jalen. So what do the Lions do? We thought Jalen would be there because we thought, Seattle would do this. If they take Christian Gonzalez. And now it goes down to the Raiders. Well, maybe we'll take Will Levis, or maybe we'll take an offensive tackle. Gets to the Falcons. What do the Falcons do? The Falcons like, I don't know what we're going to do. I thought Tyree Wilson would be there. And now you get to the Bears at 9. The Bears are like, what just happened? And that's where it becomes a bit of a pickle for us to some degree, if something like that happens. And you know what, man? I'm slowly starting to think, because I haven't heard, why didn't the Colts move up? they've been talking about wanting a quarterback for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They even put out the little meme where, you know, the owner was like, "Hey, I've been a Bears fan for a long time," and he was sitting on an actual bear or whatever at the zoo or something like that. And we haven't heard bupkis from the Colts at all, like nothing. Like they've been in the weeds,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I'm just saying, man, I'm a conspiracy
Yeah, I
theorist at
mean
heart.
that yeah, that's something that kind of has my mind wondering a little bit, and that just goes back is that this draft class for these quarterbacks is whether could possibly be good players. There's not anybody that blows anybody away, and I think there's a possibility that there's going to be a lot of head scratchers in that first round, especially in the first 10 picks. And you mentioned Jalen Carter. His agent Drew Rosenhaus came out and said they're not interviewing anybody that's not a top 10 pick. What do you see him, falling? He's had 2 interviews with the Bears that we know of. So what do you see him falling?
Great question, and I don't have a great answer for you. Where he falls, it's such a conundrum. I feel like JFK, conundrum inside a enigma wrapped inside a puzzle. He could, I see him going I'll put it this way, I see him going as early as 5 to Seattle. I do not see him getting out of the top 10. The more I think about how much of a unique player he is when he's playing at his best, and what teams really need, and the success we've seen lately of teams that have really good defensive lines. Aaron Donald helped the Rams win a Super Bowl. I know who got MVP, but I know who should have got MVP. Aaron Donald should have got MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but I picked him, and they would have put $1,000 in my pocket because I bet on him. But I'm just saying, again, I'm agreed. But we're starting to see where that the interior defensive lineman is making a huge difference. And so you want someone like him. And everybody on the Georgia team, his teammates last year and the year before said he was like, even Jordan Davis, like, dude, that dude's better than me. So he's that talent that makes you go, oh, because of his missteps off the field, and the immaturity and some of the narcissistic immaturity that he's displayed with the decisions and the non-decisions that he's made. So I don't see him getting out of the top 10. I don't see him dropping out of the top 10. If he were to fall to I know the Raiders cannot take him because of the situation with Ruggs. Yeah. They're the one team that cannot take him. I don't think Atlanta wants to take him because I think they probably know a lot more than anybody else knows because, he's been playing at University of Georgia. Right. And Atlanta, almost like the Bears, it's like, what? And that coach is a little bit leaguer. He's like, I can't make a mistake. So if he falls to the Bears, that's where it becomes a bit of a boon for us again, because there is going to be a team. There's been rumors about the Steelers wanting to possibly trade up to get him. And I think a team like the Steelers, that would be a good fit for him, locker room wise, with the head coach and also the veteran leadership that's there. So I see him as low as the Bears. I see him as high as 5 with Seattle, but I do not think I'm a firm believer now he will not get out of the top 10.
Yeah, that's kind of the way. That's kind of the way I'm thinking too. Is that I don't want to get too excited. And that's the one thing I want to see. I want to see something happen draft night, and I'm like, hey, maybe Jalen Carter falls, but I still kind of see people being on the train where he's not going to go even lower than 6 or 7. But overall, I can just assume that the answer is yes to this question. But kind of wrapping up the Bears part of this, sure. I would say you're pretty confident in the fact that the Bears ability to make the right picks come draft night, right?
I am. I'll say more yes and no. I'm like 80 to 85% yeah, because of what he did last year. I mean, last year, and from time to time, I was doing a mock draft last year. I do one each week. I had Brisker from time to time kind of flirting with top 30, and then because the Bears didn't have a draft pick in the first round, I would do what the Bears picks would be. So I had Brisker and Gordon from time to time, throughout the course of weeks in it. So when he took him, I was like, okay, I kind of see what you're doing. You're going for the best player that you can find. And he was able to maneuver and acquire a few more picks. So I was like, okay, you made some lemonade with the lemons you were given. So I thought that was pretty decent. And the moves he's made so far lets me know he's an astute thinker. He's a person who thinks ahead. He's not just thinking now, he's thinking tomorrow, he's thinking the day after tomorrow. I'm not going to say something as goofy as he's playing chess or everybody's playing checkers, but I would not be surprised if he's a good chess player. and I think he likes having players that provide his team and his coaches with leverage on the field, with their skill set. So I do believe he's going, and not only that, but he didn't take Orlando Brown as a free agent, and everybody thought that was going to happen. A lot of people thought. I didn't think so, based upon what he's talked about in terms of the type of player he's looking for. But the fact that he could have and he didn't lets me know that he takes a lot of things into regard. Not only that, but he's also shown a penchant for going back to organizations, collegiate organizations and programs that have produced before. So, Trey Smith, who's on with who's a guard for Kansas City Chiefs out of Tennessee, and who we've been hearing a lot lately that he's been really high on as far as offensive linemen from Tennessee. You done all right. So you're also looking at the linebackers from Wisconsin. We've got Sanborn and JT Edwards. So I wouldn't be shocked if he goes and gets Keanu Benton. That's another person that he may be looking toward as well. So, this is a gentleman who looks beyond just what he needs. He looks at consistency. He takes a lot of things into account, trying to get to the point of what I'm trying to say. So I do believe that he'll do a good job drafting. It's just a matter of, we just don't know what he's going to do just yet, and a lot of that's going to be contingent upon the teams ahead of us. And if we trade down, we're really going to have to wait a little bit longer. So he might just do that, man, to kind of mess with our heads a little bit, just make us wait a little bit longer.
No, yeah. And then, kind of moving on to the NFL the rest of the NFL, I should say, with the number one pick now obviously belongs to the Carolina Panthers. Who do you think they take at number one? Do you think, which I guess better question here yet as well is, who do you think is the best player in the draft, quarterback? Because obviously everyone assumes it's going to be a quarterback, right? Or basically it's
Right.
set in stone, right? But which quarterback are you taking at number one?
Okay, which quarterback am I taking, and which quarterback do I think the Panthers will take?
Or how about both? How about both?
Okay, all right, both. If it's the Panthers, I think they're starting to fall in love with Bryce Young. I think they're starting to believe he's the guy because he can do things more creatively. And you're hearing that a lot. And I'll take you back to I went to Tennessee, so sometimes I'm gonna be a little biased with my SEC coverage and my SEC, things that I'm saying. So, but watching that game, because I hate Alabama, I really do, and I hate Florida. Put that out there. Not the players, just the programs. Anyway, I watched a Tennessee game against Alabama, and I'm watching this game, and I'm like, all the expletives are coming out. I'm like, what? I'm like, why can't you get this little? Like, come on, man! Like, come on, dude. He's not that good. And by the end of the third quarter, I'm like, he's just one man. Stop him. He's just one man. By the fourth quarter, I'm like, please don't let him get the ball again. I'm scared of what he's going to do. And he's making plays, man, outside perimeter, and it's not just about running. It's where he's passing. It's how he's setting guys up, and it's very methodical and precision like. And people make these comparisons, and I know we're prisoners of the moment. I'm a little bit older, so sometimes I'll harken back to guys from yesteryear. To me, he doesn't remind me of anything like Mahomes at all. I hate that comparison. I don't think it applies. It's not applicable at all. He doesn't have an arm like Mahomes. He's not as thick as him. Who he reminded me of, eerily, was Joe freaking Montana, dude. I'm like, dude, that's Joe Montana. That's Joe Montana 2.0, bro. He's doing the same thing, and their build is a little bit similar. He's a little bit shorter than Joe, but Joe was very slight coming out of Notre Dame. And I'm like, dude, he moves like Joe. His footwork is like Joe. He sets you up like Joe. He makes big plays. He's clutch. I'm like, dude, this is Joe Montana. And nobody sees it because no one talks about Joe Montana anymore. He won 4 Super Bowl. He never lost Super Bowl. He Michael Jordan, never lost Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So I think they're realizing, like, you know what? He's just that special. So they're going to have to protect him, but I think he's going to go number one. Now, if it's me, I don't like the little guys. I'm kind of like Ken, my guy Ken Davis. He's like, I'm not. He's like, Glenn, I'm not going to take him. I don't like the little guys, Glenn. I'm not going to do it, man. I'm not going to do it. He drops that base on me. I'm like, dude, you got to try to get the base with me. I'm cool with you, but I'm with them. I'm more CJ Stroud. I do. CJ he's a cool customer. He showed me a lot in that playoff game against Georgia. Against Georgia, and I just like having that platform, a little bit higher platform to release the ball. He's such a smooth. They both throw the ball very well. The mechanics are very sound. but CJ even looks smoother. I kind of like the smooth guys, but I think that Ohio State program gets pest on a lot. I think they get crapped on a lot. And here's another thing too. If you guys everyone just piss me off, just say these things that the people say, and it's like, what has Ohio State ever done? They never produced a quarterback, and I just lose my mind. I'm like, do you know how many programs you can say that about? Like, who did Michigan ever put out before Tom Brady? And Tom Brady couldn't even start at Michigan. He was losing to Drew Henson. So stop. I was in Tennessee. You know what Tennessee was when I was in? I'm not going to say what era I was in Tennessee, but when I was in Tennessee, it was called wide receiver U. Okay, with Carl Pickens, Alvin Harper, Tim McGee, Peerless Price. You had all these guys coming out, right? Anthony Morgan back in the day, Stanley Morgan back in the day. All these cats, right? What quarterbacks ever came out of Tennessee before Peyton? They had one quarterback taken in the third round, and he was a complete bust. Heath Schuler. He ended up being like a senator for like North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. Never did anything.
Number 20.
When he took the Wonderlic test, they said the Wonderlic test said he was dumb as a rock. Okay. So that was the best quarterback out of Tennessee until Peyton. So you have that. Very few programs have ever put out quarterbacks. There's no program that's like a quarterback factory. Even the ones that you think that may have had more failures than successes. USC, Carson Palmer is really the only one in the last 20, 25 plus years. You look at Miami, nobody's been good out of Miami, the U, pretty much since Jim Kelly and Bernie Kosar. Although they had Vinny Testaverde, but he wasn't much in the league. So it's very difficult. That's a very difficult position to just have a string of quarterbacks. And even though you look at Oklahoma, when you had Jalen Hurts and before him Kyler Murray, that they almost start to look like system guys to some degree. Now they're having success, but that's kind of the coach, not so much. Oklahoma wasn't known for producing quarterbacks. So I don't want to hear that noise. And we all know that Justin Fields is an exceptional athlete. We all know that he's an exceptional talent. Once he finally has the talent to surround him, we will see the quarterback we saw at Ohio State. We'll see the guy that carved up Clemson in the rematch. We'll see the guy that took that hit, came back, and showed his toughness and durability and his FU-ness when he did that to Clemson to get them back. So I just hold up on that. What has a program ever done stuff? I'm sorry, it gets under my skin a little bit there. So I think CJ Stroud, I think he'll be fine as a pro, and I think he'll do good with Houston. And I think because they have 12 picks, they'll do enough to help surround him and get him some much needed help. And I think you'll see Houston be a lot better, a lot sooner than people realize.
Yeah, I'm gonna play that impersonation of Ken Davis next time we have him on. I'm gonna be like, is this accurate? Did Glenn get you right here? See what he says. But Joe, you got one last question for Glenn before we let him go?
You know what? One of the teams that's been concerning me is the team in our division. I don't want to use the word afraid because they're in Detroit, but I am concerned. I am concerned about the could-be monster that Detroit is building. And how do you see, their rebuild going? Well, I guess they've kind of arrived, so to speak. And with the additions they're going to be able to make in the draft,
I won't say arrived until you have arrived, but I get what you're saying. And actually, it's funny, man. And I have to tell my guys on the podcast the guys I'm with, like, go back, man, because I was telling you to watch out for those Lions last year because you can see how they were building in the trenches to begin with. Once they got Campbell, they started building in the trenches. I was like, ooh. And then they got the skill guys. I was like, ooh. And I'm like, Jared Goff is not a punk. He may not be a great quarterback, but he's been at several playoff games. He's played through an injury at one time to win a playoff game. He got to the Super Bowl. He's okay. You just need to have stuff around him. And then last year you saw them hit their stride. And they're believing themselves and they're starting to feel themselves a little bit, but not in an overreaching kind of way. Like, we still have stuff to prove kind of way. And that's the team that's dangerous. And they're young and they're hungry. And, you can put all the other, adjectives to go along with that. So yeah, man, you are right to be, you don't want to say afraid, but be seriously concerned about where they're going. And if they do get Jalen Carter, then you can be afraid.
Yeah.
You can be afraid.
Oh no.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it because they have Hutchinson, and Hutchinson was on Fields behind in that game, and he's the guy that's athletic enough to keep up with them, and they also had the defensive lineman from Jackson State. I can't remember his name right now.
Houston.
Houston, that's who it is. there were some monsters on that defensive line, and just thinking of them adding Jalen Carter is, something to be afraid about.
Or Tyree Wilson. They might take him there, which, can give them a more additional leverage on as far as on the perimeter of their defense. Yeah, man, they're going to be a problem for a while. They really are. And the fact that they could have got out of that contract with Goff last year and they didn't. And they realized, you know what? No, we're good going forward, because he's still a young guy. He's not an old guy at all. So yeah, man, and they love playing for the coach, and it's a good coaching staff. It's an underrated coaching staff. He does a really good job, and all his bluster and bravado, the head coach, he knows he's not an idiot. He's not a dummy, and there's enough old school in him to take a field goal instead of trying to go for it on 4th and 17 like somebody in Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not going to throw any names or point fingers, but but he'll do that. But his team, he'll also take chances too, and he's just unpredictable enough. He's just zany enough to do some unpredictable stuff that can work. And his team would be like, you know what, coach? All right, you called it, let's do it. So there's a good synergy between the coaching staff and the players that it's all, it can be nothing but beneficial towards their mindset and the culture that they're developing there in Detroit. And you know what, man, I don't hate Detroit. They've been downtrodden for so long. And I used to go up there to catch some games. And hey, man, I'm not pulling for them, but I it ain't Green Bay. So I'm not going to hold it against them.
Yeah. And how funny would that be, right? That this whole time we're thinking, once he's not out yet, but once Aaron Rodgers leaves the division, we're like, oh, it's our division. And then we're like, oh, now it's the Lions coming up. All right. So now it's gonna be fascinating to see what the Lions do next year. But hey, Glynn, we appreciate you coming on, man. Really, really hope to have you on again sometime. And before you go, you said something about a podcast. Feel free to plug, man.
Oh, appreciate that, guys. Yeah. Check me and my guys out at Easy Smoke and the GM podcast. We're on all platforms. We don't get to see the wonderful faces and the handsome guys like you. We're audio, but you can catch us, drive with us into work on your way back home from work. Just 3 guys from the South Side. We're talking sports. We enjoy Bears, Bulls, and White Sox. We don't care about the Cubs. Sorry.
You know how close I was to wearing the Cubs hat too. Good thing I wore this Red Sox hat. It's fine.
No, it's all good. We don't hate them. We just, it's not a big reason to talk about them for the most part. But no, we talk all. Sorry,
they're coming up 11-6. 11-6.
You know what? I'm impressed. Man. We talk all sports. We love all Chicago sports. Yeah. But also too, we try and keep it stay within our what our interests, and we try to bring our enthusiasm through that and be consistent. We try to be as authentic as we can be, and we would be a little bit inauthentic if we were talking Cubs and Blackhawks. So we're not trying to fool anybody. Yeah,
right.
But yeah, join us, man. We enjoy having a good time, and we like for people to have that good time with us when they listen. So by all means, please, I appreciate if anyone can plug into. And guys, I just want to say thank you, and Mr. Means. Shout out to my guy as well, Kyle. Appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's a lot of fun.
All right, so that's NBC draft analyst Glynn Morgan. Great conversation, man. Honestly, probably one of my more favorite guests that we've had on here. But anyways, with the draft next week, we got a great show next week as well to preview the draft on Thursday. That it's gonna be it's gonna be filled with excitement. For Saul Rodriguez, Joe Tanksley, want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.